An Author's Voice. Episode 2 from the Technical Workshop. I'm Charlie Forit, and this is the workshop, the technical strand of An Author's Voice where I pull apart the software I built to run my own books. If you're new here, the craft episodes are the main show, and they're right back next time. This is where I nerd out about the machine underneath. Fair warning, this one gets more technical than most. It's the piece I'm proudest of, and the one most likely to make a non-coder's eyes cross. If that's you, skip ahead with my blessing. But even if you never touch code, this episode is secretly about running two pen names as one operation without letting them bleed into each other, and that's a working writer problem if there ever was one. Last time was the why. This one's the how, and it's the hardest how in the series. One engine, two faces. I needed a second website, and I already had the code for the first one sitting right there. The obvious move was to copy the folder. Copy the folder, point a new domain at it, change the colors, done by lunch. Every author dev who's ever run two sites has felt the pull of that shortcut. I've maintained forked codebases before. I know how they end. 6 months later, you fix a bug in one copy and forget the other. A feature you built for Site A never makes it to Site B, and the two slowly drift into different apps that hate each other. Copying the folder is a loan you repay every week for the life of the project. So I did the harder thing. I made one app pretend to be two. IntegrationError.com and charlieforit.com are different in every way that a reader can see. Different domain, different name, different mood. One is Terminal Blue, a single lit RPG world you can climb all the way down into. The other is warm and editorial, the front door to everything else I write, space opera and fantasy and thrillers, the whole spread. They don't look like cousins. Under the paint, they're the same running program. One codebase, one database, one server. The industry word for this is multi-tenant. Many tenants living in one building, each behind their own locked door, sharing the plumbing and the foundation. Gmail is multi-tenant. Your inbox and mine run on the same code, you just can't see mine. The rule I set myself was total separation. Each site keeps its own reader list, its own members, its own everything. A reader who's all in on the lit RPG world signs up there and belongs there. A reader who wants the full range across genres lives on the other site, on a separate list that never sees the first. Same building, different locked doors, and those doors turned out to matter more than anything else I built. Making the same code run both, without it ever slipping into one site reading the other's people, was the entire hard part. Every request to the server now starts with a small piece of code that does one job. It reads the domain you typed and decides which site you're on. In Phoenix, that piece is called a plug. It reads the hostname on the incoming request, finds the matching organization in the database, and staples that org onto the request before anything else runs. IntegrationError.com resolves to one org. charlieforit.com resolves to another. From that point on, every query the page makes is supposed to filter by that org and show only its content. The setup around it is refreshingly dull. Both domains point their DNS at the same app. Fly, my host, serves a TLS certificate for each domain with one command. No second deploy, no second database, no second bill. Adding a third site someday is a row in a table and a certificate, not a new server. That's the clean version. The clean version took an afternoon. Then came the part that actually mattered. Here's the confession that makes this one worth telling. My database was only half ready for it. When I first built the app, I was smart enough to give most tables an org tag, a little marker saying which site each row belongs to. Then I was honest enough to admit I had one site, and I left the runtime single tenant, meaning the code carried the marker around but never actually checked it. For a month that was fine. One org. Nothing to leak into. The moment a second org went live, every query that ignored that marker became a door with no lock. and when I audited them, the two tables missing the tag entirely were the two I'd least want to get wrong: characters and purchases. Reader-created content and actual money. If the scoping was sloppy, a reader on one site could surface a character or a payment that belonged to the other. That's the kind of bug you don't get to apologize for. So the real work wasn't the doorman. It was walking every place in the app that reads data, the blog, the stories, the store, the newsletter, the community, the comments, and forcing each one to ask which org before it returned a single row. Then adding the marker to the tables that never had it. Content and money first. The bug that scared me most was quieter than a leak. I'd wired new rows to get stamped with a default org, a leftover from the single site days. So a post I created while working on the Charlie Forit site was getting saved as belonging to integration error. No error. No red text. Just my content silently filed under the wrong site, which I only caught because I went looking. I ripped that default out and made every write stamp the org from the actual request instead. Then I wrote an isolation test whose entire purpose is to fail loudly if Site A can ever see Site B's rows again. That test is the most valuable 40 lines in the project. The core cutover happened in roughly one very long day. It went live on real traffic the next. I spent the 2 evenings after that hunting leaks I'd missed, which brings me to the embarrassing half. Data isolation is the half that can hurt someone. Brand isolation is the half that just looks bad, and there was plenty of it. The visual side I'd planned for. Every color in the app is a named token, a variable, instead of a hard-coded value. So a new site restyles itself by overriding a set of tokens. No template surgery. Charlie Forit got its own look. A warm editorial system I call Meridian, sitting on the exact same HTML that renders the serial's terminal Chrome. That part worked close to first try, and I was smug about it for a full 10 minutes. Then the leaks showed up. Not data leaks. Word leaks. The serial's whole interface speaks in a system voice. Stat screens and terminal language baked in over a year of building for one brand. On the author site, that voice bled through everywhere. Integration error turned up in an email footer. Terminal vocabulary surfaced on a novelist's landing page. My theme accents were painting the wrong elements because I'd targeted the page route instead of each component. Discussion categories I thought were per site were quietly shared across both. I spent those evenings playing whack-a-mole with my own branding, and honestly, that hunt is still not completely over. Every so often I find one more place the flagship's personality soaked through. The reader gets 2 real websites, each one completely itself. Its own front door, its own readers, its own community. Nothing from the other site bleeds in. Land on the world that's yours, and it behaves as though it's the only one running. What I get is the thing I built the whole platform for. One codebase. When I ship a feature, both sites get it the same day, because there's only ever one of it to build. A third pen name, if I ever want one, is a configuration, not a rewrite. The isolation test still runs on every change. It's watching right now. Good. That's episode 2 from the workshop. If you'd like to see the two-faced trick from the reader's side, both sites are a click apart, and each has a free story waiting, no password. The written version is linked in the show notes. I'll bring more from the workshop when there's a piece worth telling, and the craft episodes carry on in between. Thanks for listening to an author's voice. This episode is copyright 2026. Charlie Forit. All rights reserved. This recording is for personal listening only, and may not be reproduced, distributed, or used in any other form without permission. Voices in the recording provided by Speechify. If you'd like to share it, send someone the link. That works fine.